at that point, I'm thinking the errors are people who are, standing up and, trying to solve the problems. Okay, I had no understanding of where that was. Anyway, so I financed all of Jihad Unspun and have financed Jihad Unspun from day one, to the tune that there is no money left, there is no cars left, my Presidio is gone, my house is gone, it's all gone, okay? But that's okay. I know I have fundamentally the ability to create it again should I want to do that. And ultimately, the mission to me was too important. I mean,
when were you in the time?
pardon? Well, at that time in Egypt, okay, I ran out of money in Egypt.
So there's no more property in Canada?
No, there's no more nothing in Canada. I have my business associate saying, when are you going to stop this Islam and come home and get back to work? Okay?
Back to normal.
Yeah, that's right, Anyway.
And so at the moment you were abnormal?
Oh yeah, but I have to say he's the only one who would abandon me. He's the only one who's got my back if something goes wrong. But I made him a lot of money in his career, and he knows my revenue generating capabilities. And he can't quite get his head around. He's an atheist. He can't, to him, life is about money. And he can't kind of cope. He's watched me for 20 years go from being an atheist to a Christian to a Christian to a he can't kind of cope with it all.
He's still an atheist.
Oh yeah, and always
But a good friend.
Good friends, solid friends, and thank goodness, because I have no family or anything else. Anyway, so, I'm also really good at marketing, so, I tried everything on Juice. I tried Juice Club, sign up and we'll give you videos on a monthly basis. I tried, I knew we couldn't sell advertising because advertisers
Where do you get all that from?
Oh, we have articles from everywhere.
Contributors?
We have in Iraq, we have the Muslim Peace and News reports in Arabic. That means it's got to be translated. We have the news information coming out of Pakistan.
They're sending all these articles and what's it?
Well, what they do is they send you a link to a private forum. You can't go direct because of the links, okay? So they send you a link to a private forum, you log in, you grab the information down, send with videos and that kind of thing. That's how they disseminate the information. In Pakistan, I have two reporters, which haven't been paid for ages, but nevertheless continue to do their work. And we get information there, mostly in Urdu, so that's another translation process.
Sending all the information are first-hand information?
Yeah, well, we've got first-hand information coming out of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iraq, but we are weeks behind in translating. Okay, this is a huge problem. Okay, the lead of my translation team has left. The bottom line is we have no money, okay, because we can't pay these people, and the whole idea was to come to Malaysia and get a central office set up where we can operate like a publishing company. I've built several publishing companies. That's what I do for a living. So I understand what it takes to do it. But in looking at being able to do that, and yes, that's the first step, is to get an office on the ground where we have translators and an editor, because I'm burning out. I'm doing all the editing myself, and I'm burning out, frankly, after all this period of time. So, but there is difficulty getting into the Malaysian market. From a corporate perspective, from, opening up a bank account, getting a corporation. I can't open up a Malaysian bank account unless I've been here 2 years. I have to have a work permit and work for somebody else if I want to stay in the country. I can't start a new corporation, but that new corporation has to go to somebody else. Okay, so there's all these kind of hoops, which overall in my mind, they're doable hoops, but those hoops are not doing. At the same time, I have to look objectively at where Juice is at. This reached its peak in 2003 when the Iraq War started.
Because I noticed your website is up and down several times.
Oh, now, yeah, and I'm taking it offline at some point. Because we can't get any fresh information out because we don't have the hands to do it. This is the problem. We're not refreshing. I haven't refreshed all week. Okay, I mean news, there's daily news. You got to, if you want to retain the itch, you've got to be putting that information out there. I'm not doing that because currently I don't have a lead translator. I don't read Arabic. I can't even code the information for these guys to be able to, and tell them, okay, this report needs to be done or that report needs to be done because we need an Arabic speaker in-house that can make those decisions. Anyway, in 2003, we had over 800,000 hits a day. That's because we were, that's right, a day. And that was 50-50, Muslim and non-Muslim. We were exactly where I wanted us to be, okay? A lot of people knew that the Iraq War was a bunch of baloney before it ever started. And mainstream press was not giving it, it was just propaganda. So we got a huge amount of, alternative media as a whole went on during that period of time. Well, and Al Jazeera is another story. I mean, I'll come back to Al Jazeera. Anyway, so that was all good, and we were able to keep on top of all of that, unworthy of it. The problem with translation in Egypt is they don't know English. So, yes, they can translate, they know Arabic, but they don't know English on the other side. So that's another huge problem. What ended up happening, now people are just tired of the war. We were also, at that point, and I'm going to write a book about this because we were semi-retired on the base of the Pacific Ocean. I worked 25 years to build my little empire. I find when I came to Christianity, I got out of publishing. Publishing is a cutthroat business, okay? People think publishers are writers. Publishers are not writers. Publishers are people who generate all the advertising revenue, hold on to it through the production process, and get profit for the shareholders. That's what publishers do. I've been 14 years that were a blur building this thing. So I finally sold out, and I moved to Lions Bay, a mountain on 3/4 of an acre, bought my dream house, my big balcony where I could just go out and lay in the sun, and decided I'd start a little web development company and use my skills to help promote companies, because most companies don't know how to create branding, they don't understand all that stuff. That was very successful, but we were working, that was, when did I start Data Crafters? That was, no, this was before 2002. I started Data Crafters in 1998. Anyway, so that was great. My staff would come up the mountain, drive up to the mountain, barbecue for lunch. It was a perfect creative, environment, and we were doing high-level websites and high-level application development, primarily, as it turned out, for aerospace companies. So that was fine, and I was pretty much, living the life I wanted to live at that point in time, but I told you honestly, I wasn't satisfied. Okay. Then, I had the car. Yeah, got the car, just got everything, I'm a practicing Christian, I've got both of my friends who are Jewish, having the fancy. My biggest worry at that time was whether the parsley was fresh enough for the dinner party on the weekend, okay? I hate to admit it, okay, but that's true, okay? I had come from nothing, the hippies, all the way through this corporate jungle, rising in the corporate jungle, doing the whole thing, okay? And I get there, and guess what? It's not enough, Anyway, so then September 11th happened. That's when I decided shortly after just to launch Jihad on time. I had a really smart IT manager. I had the resources. I had, the tech skills. We were running our own server, so I decided to do that. The minute I converted to Islam, my Jewish friends of 20 years wouldn't talk to me again.
It was in 2002.
That's right. 2002, I converted to Islam, and it was instant. Okay, it was absolutely instant.
Everybody disappeared.
Everybody, except for one Chinese guy, my IT manager, and he hung with me for another year. To make a long story short, it was after that that I decided to go to Egypt. Okay, so I cashed out. The house wasn't paid for. Had a mortgage. I cashed out. Went liquid, hold as much liquid as I could, and decided to go to Egypt and try and start the juice operation in Egypt in what I'm thinking is going to be a country that's going to embrace jihad. They can't even say the word jihad in Egypt. Okay, I mean they're so afraid. Anyway, of course, I didn't know any of
At
that.
that time, you have a very good impression of Egypt.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm at that point, I'm thinking the Arabs are people who are, standing up and, trying to solve problems. Okay, I had no understanding of where that was. Anyway, so I find in Malaysia, it's a simple one. What we need to be able to do is focus on the things that bring us together, not that divide us. The Muslim Ummah is riddled with division. And certainly, even in Malaysia, we are looking at one another saying, my goodness, we don't want this, we don't, what do you believe, what don't I believe? We have a common basis. That common basis is the love of Allah. We have another common basis, which is the Quran. And other than that, we have to be focusing on the things that bring us together, not the things that divide us. And I'm hoping that we can establish in Malaysia an example that we can use to unify the Muslims on a broader scale. And that's truly what I'm trying to do here. And I think that's all very possible in Malaysia. We have to get over our self-interests. Of course, we as people all have our own interests at mind. But oftentimes, our own interests and our own beliefs, there's a saying in the West, which is, when you stand up for your rights, you actually take another person's. And if you think on that statement for a little bit, you can see how the possibility of that can happen. So, one group will say, we're standing up for this. And even, when new information comes to them, they will still stay along that path. Spirituality and religion is a path of learning. In order to learn, you have to be open-minded. Religion would have never evolved. The Muslims would have never evolved in the first centuries had they been closed-minded. What we have to be able to do is understand that we are all at different parts of the path. That isn't a negative. That's not, something that we have to divide over. We're all on the path, seeking the path, and we're at different places. If we have new information, we have to have the courage to change. What's happened in the Muslim Ummah is that it has adapted so many traditions and ethnic aspects to its culture. So you see a different Muslim in Pakistan, a different Muslim in Arabia, a different Muslim in America, a different Muslim in Britain and Malaysia, etc. And we call that our Islam, and therefore we think that's the only right Islam. We think, and we reject any other's points of view or any other people who follow, wear a different type of hijab, or don't cover, or do cover completely. This is our ego getting in the road. Any way you want to look at it, we're saying we're right and you're wrong. This is like the kid, who says, my daddy's bigger than you are. We will never be able to have unity if we are not prepared to evaluate our own viewpoints in relation to someone else's.
The level of tolerance is also very important.
Mm-hmm. We are tolerant. As Muslims, we are entirely intolerant. In the Christian community, Christians work together all the time. Now that's Baptist, Catholic, they don't even get into those issues, okay? If they can do business with a Christian company, they'll do business with a Christian company before they'll do business with another company. But they don't go in and say, okay, now what's your Akita and what do you believe and do you pray 9 times a day, or do you, celebrate, do you have a Christmas tree, or do you have, do you give charity at Easter time? Every time we want to try to pick each other apart, none of this is perfect. So at the end of it, there is going to be holes, no matter how you cut it, in any single human being. We all have good and we all have bad. So, we can't pick each other apart to the molecular level when there's nothing left. The Christians say, okay, you're Christian, I'm going to do business with you. Now, I'm not saying we should follow the Christians. I'm only giving that as an example, is that they don't, pick at each other, and they show a tolerance to one another based on the fact that they believe, they believe in God. As the Muslims, we have to say, what's your ethnic background? What's your Akida? Do you believe in the right Akida? Do you wear niqab? Do you not wear niqab? And it is all these cultural problems in the background that are and our intolerance, the combination of those things, that leaves the Ummah weak. How are we going to join together? The Palestinian issue could have been solved 50 years ago by simply Muslims holding hands. That simple, human chain. But do you think we could get 1 million Muslims or 2 million Muslims? We're 1 billion strong. Could we actually get that amount of people to participate in doing that? No. Because this guy isn't this and this guy isn't that, and this person might not believe what I believe, and this person does 2 winter prayers, and this guy does only 1, and we look at all the reasons why not. What's at the bottom of that? What I believe is at the bottom of that is love of self for love of brotherhood. Allah tells us in the Quran, after faith, next comes brotherhood. We haven't gotten past step 2 because the brotherhood isn't there. The Ummah is a term that doesn't actually exist today. It's something we hold on to. We say, hi brother, hi sister, salam alaikum, alaikum assalam. But we don't function as an Ummah. It is really a word only. And that is what we have to restore. As Allah says, that's the second step. After faith comes brotherhood. We will never be able to resist all of the things against us unless we stand together.
How do you intend to create this awareness among the Muslims?
Dialogue.
Dialogue.
We have got to get the issues that are affecting the Muslims on the table. These can't be issues that we talk about behind closed doors. Differences in Akida. This person believes this Akida. This person believes that Akida. Fine, let's bring our evidence and let's talk it through. We have got to have dialogue between Muslims. If we don't have dialogue between Muslims, how are we ever going to get to unity? So I think dialogue, I truly do. I mean, we have to start addressing the issues. As a revert, when you come into Islam, people tell you a bunch of things, and if you ask a question, you're pretty much scolded, okay? Which is why reverts don't ask questions, okay? And they end up having weak faith. I will not embrace something that I don't fully understand and believe in. I will continue to ask those questions, and I'm not using myself as some important example. I'm saying that anyone can't have a solid faith in anything unless it's a true knowledge. And you cannot obtain true knowledge without asking questions and investigating it. So to say, okay, this is how we do it, we hear and we obey. Yes, we hear and we obey based on knowledge, but we've got to have that knowledge first. A lot of knowledge is also used as a way to prevent Muslims from doing things. You don't have enough knowledge, therefore you shouldn't be doing those sorts of things. Well, that's equally as harming. What we need to be able to do is talk between ourselves. What's the issues that are facing the Ummah, and how do we address the divisions? We're letting the Kafirs determine our future for us. We need to be determining our futures for us. We have to be not afraid to be able to cross the line to somebody else's viewpoint and evaluate it and discuss it. You know? So I think it starts with dialogue. Everyone, you know, the Muslims are afraid to talk because somebody will say, oh my goodness, that's the wrong Aqidah, or oh my goodness, you know, that's against what you know, we believe. Well, you know, that creates, you know, the doors of Ittijat are closed. I don't believe that for a second. You know, Allah gave us a brain. He expects us to find the path. We are all on the path. We need to share our experiences.
Talking about Aqidah, I'm really confused between culture and religion.
Between
Culture and
culture,
religion.
right.
So we tend to make an assumption out of our culture and our belief, our Aqidah. So every race, they have their own culture. So they tend to merge this culture and religious belief into a certain, what we call it?
Mindset. Identity. Identity. Exactly.
So
The Malaysian Muslim has his identity. The Arab Muslim has identity. And the Arab says his identity is better.
Stand identity.
Okay.
Okay.
Every ethnic group, are you on?
Yes.
Every ethnic group seems to have their identity as a Muslim. The Arab Muslim has his identity, the Malaysian Muslim has his identity, the Pakistani Muslim has his identity, and that identity is formed on traditional and cultural things that have been accumulated and formed into Islam. The Arab Muslim thinks the Pakistani doesn't practice the right religion. The Pakistani doesn't think the Arab practices the right religion. It's only going to be through dialogue that we void and get rid of, purge, for lack of a better word, what is traditional and what is actually Islam. Because the lines now are blurred. And the Arab has a different understanding, the Pakistani has a different understanding, the Malay has a different understanding. We need to start at a common goal. Common goal, we love Allah. Common goal number 2, the Quran is the word of Allah. We need to start on that basic of level and then begin to flush out of the religion these traditional things that have nothing whatsoever to do with Islam. In my school were, you know, Chinese, and we didn't have blacks, but I lived in Detroit for a period of time, and I've been to all those underground black clubs and all the rest of it. And, you know, we're all people. It doesn't matter if you're in Egypt, you know. When I was in Mansoura, which was a very small, the first place I went in Egypt was Mansoura, which is a small, agricultural, very poor little city, village. You know, well, they call it a city, but it wouldn't be a city by our standards. And I was in culture shock. Okay, there's dead sheep on the side of the street. That, you know, the streets are just dirt. Old men sitting out. You know, no water. And I sent the brother who was supposed to, you know, host me money to get an apartment ahead of time. The place has no water. Okay, I mean, you can live with a lot of things, but water is not one of them, you know. And then the neighbor next door, who didn't speak one single ounce of English, I guess she knew that I was having this problem with the water. You know, they were getting up plumbers trying to get water into the place, and she would knock on the door and she would bring me bottled water. Now, bottled water for an Egyptian is an extremely expensive thing to buy. These are very poor people, okay? And all she would do, and she'd have a little tear in her eye, because she was giving a gift of herself. She couldn't say, hi, how are you? Okay? And I would think to myself, this is a wonderful experience. She's giving, you know, to me on my terms, okay? Bottled water, not kitchen water, okay? Bottled water. And this is exactly, you know, how do we try to make somebody feel better? We say, what would you like? Tea, coffee? We give, you know, we give on the level that you want to receive. So, Rafa refugee camp changed my life. I mean, I've never seen people that poor before.
And there's a communication breakdown.
Oh, man.
So you're using a sign language, is it?
There were actually, I met a person on the other side who spoke English, okay, so that was good. But we had for dinner a potato, one potato, that was dinner, okay? They had nothing, okay, they have nothing. You know, I came out of there moved, okay, I mean, changed my life, moved. When you see how people live and they're still hospitable and they still, you know, we're all people, you know, today, you know, you could lose your wealth or I could be struck by, you know, some plague or, you know, whatever it happens to be. We all want the same things. We want security. We want the right to be able to earn a living, you know. It doesn't, all the rest doesn't matter.
Are you touched by the kindness or are you touched by the religion or the person who show you the kindness?
I'm touched by the kindness, to answer honestly. Personally. The religion is the secondary fact. It's that we identify as people,
yes.
Okay? You know, man has taken religion and ruined religion, you know. Manipulated religion. We, you know, narrow little paths, this is what this is, this is what that is, this is what this is, you know. After 9/11, at the time of 9/11, I was a Baptist, okay? I would go to my church on Sunday, and I remember the first sermon after 9/11. Now this is in Vancouver, Canada, which is about 2.5 hours drive from Seattle, okay? I mean, we are really close to the border of the United States, okay? And I remember, you know, the praise in, you know, that religion, there's praise in the beginning of the thing, singing and what have you. And then the pastor gave a sermon on something like how to treat your children or something. There was not one word about what had happened on 9/11. Now, that event shocked everybody and shook everybody. That is when a pastor in faith, or if you have hurt, that's when your faith should be front and center. It's what holds you. It's what grounds you. But they didn't even address it, okay? People were glued to the television set. I mean, Canadians were freaked about this.
Because at that time, the perception is the attack was being done by Al-Qaeda.
Well, it was more,
at that point of time, the perception...
It was more than that. It was that we do not mix politics and religion. Therefore, they saw that as a political event, somebody trying to, make a political statement, and they didn't want to discuss that because politics and religion, what kind of religion do you have if it doesn't encompass every part of your life? I mean, you know, you can't say this is my religion and this is my politics and this is this and this is...
At the time of the incident of 9/11, the image that was being projected by the media, that they want their image, the stories, they already plan what sort of image to be projected to the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember sitting on my computer with the face of Osama bin Laden, looking at him. Okay, just looking at him. My staff had gone home, you know, I was on the mountain, the staff had gone home, and I wanted answers. I typed in, who is this guy? What does he want? And I remember looking at him thinking, this isn't a Charles Manson. This isn't a mass murderer who's out of his mind. You can tell by looking at someone's face.
It's true.
You know, what's wrong? You know, what does this guy want? And that's when I started to dig and started to find out about the declarations of war and about Palestine, which I didn't know about Palestine.
Right.
Okay? How on earth could I have grown up for 48 years in Canada and not known that Israel was formed on Palestinian land? How is that possible? And then, you know, somebody who's in the know, a business person who's tuned into the news all the time and all the rest, how is that possible? So once I found all this stuff, I was outraged, you know, because I'm like the average Canadian person. We don't know any of this stuff. And I knew, you know, people said, well, why would you want to do that portal? The war will be over, you know, before you know it. I knew the war wouldn't be over before, you know, I've been proven right since.
So most of the public just doesn't want to be any part of it, is it? Just let it pass and
exactly.
forget about it.
Which actually brings us back to the juice topic. Part of, regardless of all the difficulties we're having, you know, financially, staff-wise, all those things, people are sick of the war. They don't even want to deal with it anymore, okay? They want to watch their ball games, they want to, you know, Pakistanis, staying with the Pakistanis in Britain. During that time, the Lalmos massacre happened in Pakistan. And I tried to interest a filmmaker in going and, you know, doing a documentary on it. Now, I'm not Pakistani, okay? But this is somebody killing, you know, Musharraf killing his own people. It's tyranny, okay? So we finally got the film, you know, authorized, which is why I'm going to Pakistan. But the Pakistanis I was living with had no real concern for this event that happened. And their answer was, the Pakistanis have always been ruled by the stick, and they don't know how to operate other than the stick. So they literally justified Musharraf's attack on his own people. Now, you know, meanwhile, they're watching British football, and they're living a British lifestyle, and, you know, it's like, you know, it's not even an issue to them. You know, if this happened in Canada, okay, if this happened anywhere as a person, I would be concerned about it. But if this happened in Canada, in Vancouver, for instance, I'd be, you know, catching a plane home and, you know, speaking to the media and doing, you know, but people are distancing themselves from that because they, you know, A, they don't want to speak up, B, they don't want to be branded as a terrorist because anybody who stands up these days is branded as a terrorist. And C, they actually don't care, because it's not affecting their life today. It's not, you know, they're putting you know, food on the table. They're putting, you know, they're driving the BMW.
Who are we talking about?
Well, just, you know, Pakistanis in general in Britain, okay? I mean, you know, I'm saying that when something like a Lalmos happened, the Pakistanis...
Now we come back to the previous question about your intention to open a...
Okay, so Jihad Unspun, in its current form, is old hat. I had a streaming channel in 2002 when I had money, but we didn't have the content in 2002. Now we've got all this content, but we don't have the money and we don't have the technical capability. The marketplace has changed in 6 years. So I look at Juice, and it's an old system, it's an old concept, and, you know, it needs to be refocused.
Why did you choose Malaysia?
I choose Malaysia because it's poising itself to be the multimedia corridor. Strictly perception on one hand. Secondly, there is a lot of English spoken here. Thirdly, there is a lot of technology coming in here eventually. I mean, it's not here yet, but from Asia and China and that connection. Fourthly, I think Malaysian Muslims do want to do things. They may not be to the point where they want to stand up and declare jihad or anything, but they're active. They're trying to, on particular levels, they're trying to do different things. There's all sorts of little groups that are going out and doing things. So I think they're active.
In Malaysia and Indonesia, English speaking personnel, I think it's not that much. Do you intend to translate the language from English into Bahasa?
No. Here's what I'm planning on doing. I'm planning on starting a 24/7, meaning running 24/7 days a week, streaming channel worldwide, which means servers in 4 different parts of the globe, based with production in Malaysia, that covers news, viewpoints, roundtables, discussion, special programming, education, and a variety of lifestyle, and a variety of different things that encompass the Muslim community. Doing news as an anchored news, just like you see it on TV. Not taking in a statement and translating that statement and putting it out there, but saying, okay, today in Iraq, Ansar al-Sunni carried out 5 different operations, it netted this amount of thing, here's the clip. You know, President Bush is, you know, trying to get the Republicans to quell the spy bill, make whatever comment there. So where it's a mixture, I mean, I want to continue to represent the Mujahideen. I want to do it in a broader way where we can get broader reach.
I intend to create a website in a more on an interaction basis.
Yes.
With your audience.
Exactly. Now with streaming TV, the whole idea of the streaming channel is unity. We've discussed earlier, what's the biggest problem the Muslims have? Working together, okay? I sat and listened to your understanding of jinn and Sufism and all those things, okay? The average Muslim wouldn't do that, okay? You've listened to my viewpoints on things, okay? The Muslims are dividing based on minor little things. Does she wear niqab? Does she not wear niqab?
Yeah.
Does this guy practice this or that guy practice that? And we're getting killed there is at least 1/3 of the Sunni population by Iraq that has been killed so far. We are sweating the small stuff, and we are allowing those divisions to happen. Those divisions are fueled by the imperialistic powers. It's been the same game they've played with us from day one, divide and rule. But the Muslim now is the whole create unity. Well, if we want to bring anything together, the first thing we have to do is establish a point of communication. That's step number 1. So the Al-Wada channel, and maybe we don't call it that, but that's, for the purpose of the proposals, the Al-Wada channel, which means unity in Arabic. The whole idea of that is to give us a central point where Muslims can communicate. We don't have to worry about communicating to the rest of the world in a huge way at this point, okay? What we need to be able to do is create unity. It's the one problem that it's the biggest problem as far as I can see. So if we can have news will draw an audience. That's what news does. It draws an audience. They want to get the latest information. We have news, that'll draw audience. If we have viewpoints, that will create discussion. If we have roundtable, we can put 2 and 3 different and 4 different viewpoints together, and we can have that kind of dialogue. What's the difference between a Wahhabi and a Salafi, okay? Now, what we do in Islam today is, you have your Aqidah, and I have my Aqidah, and your Aqidah is wrong. Well, let's sit down and you bring your evidence and I'll bring my evidence, and if we're both two open-minded individuals, we are going to probably most likely arrive at a common place, okay? But we will not, or even a compromise. Now the word compromise in Islam is a dirty word, okay? Because we're not supposed to use our minds. As long as we are going by the guidelines of the Quran and the Sunnah, what are we talking about? The Quran is the book. The Sunnah, in some aspects, who knows the Sunnah? The Arabs say they know the Sunnah, and the Sunnah is this. The Pakistanis say they know the Sunnah, and the Sunnah is this. There's Sahih Muslim, there's Sahih Bukhari, there's Sahih, Muslim. Not all of these, this is the history, and this is used for us to use as guidelines. But this is not something we should be dividing over. If you don't believe Hadith number 104 out of Sahih Muslim, this should not divide us between a brother and sister. This should be something we discuss, and we may agree to disagree, but we come to an end point of this constant disruption our ummah. We're not going to get anywhere as Muslims, okay? We're never going to hold ground again. We're never going to have Khilafah if we don't get our act together. So as far as I can see, communication is step one. We can, and we need to do that in a strategy that we don't want to need to target the non-Muslim, but we need to do that strategically in the sense that the perception of that channel is now not, you know, jihad or mysticism or, you know, any of the labels that the enemies of Islam like to, you know, they like to draw aspects out. I mean, they'll accept Islam, you know, they'll accept you praying 5 times a day. Don't mention the word jihad, you know, don't mention the word Palestine, or you'll have, you know, Hannigan all over you, okay? So we need to build a bigger mousetrap with real reach. Now, I looked at doing that through a television channel. Al-Azhar just got a television channel. There's a television channel now on Malaysian television, channel 113 or something, that is trying to, you know, put out some information on television. The problem with television is that it's going to be censored. First of all, it's going to cost us a whole lot of money to try to get a license, and we're going to have issues in trying to get that license. Assuming we do get that license, we're going to be totally dominated by the fact that we're on a television satellite network, and that at any given time we're going to be pressured to go down one way or the other. The internet is the only thing that is actually still open to us, but censorship is coming to the web too. 2 years ago in the United States, a law was passed that allowed the telecommunication companies to begin to charge for the use of the pipe that connects you to the internet. Well, it isn't here yet, and we probably have a year or two before it is here. Their whole plan, and they're working out now the pricing structure, is to price based on how fast you want to serve up to the web. So if I'm Microsoft, I will pay a fee to the telecommunications guy, a healthy fee, and I will get fast access to the internet. But all the little small guys down here who can't afford it will be relegated to the slow lanes. That's how they're going to censor. You know, there's a lot of discussion about how they're going to censor the web. You know, the West wants to try to shut down the jihad sites. They can't. There's all these different, you know, ways out there of how they're trying to figure out to censor it. How they're going to censor it is with capitalism, with money. So, you know, a site like Jihad Unspun, or, you know, Brother Arif's streaming channel, it's going to be price prohibitive to be able to act.
A CBC News exclusive for you now about Beverly Giesbrecht. If you recognize her name, she was the Canadian woman who died in 2010 while in Taliban captivity, 2 years after she was kidnapped in Pakistan. Documents obtained by CBC News indicate the Department of Foreign Affairs believed Giesbrecht was dead months before they made it public, and they secretly told RCMP officers to drop the investigation. The story today from Kurt Petrovich.
Last May, after months of persistent inquiries, the Department of Foreign Affairs admitted to CBC News that Beverly Giesbrecht, who'd been kidnapped by the Taliban in Pakistan more than 2 years earlier, had likely died in captivity the previous year. But the department said it was pursuing all appropriate channels on the case. Well, RCMP documents released through Access to Information show that months before that admission, the department had actually told the RCMP to stop investigating, and the RCMP agreed, shutting down what had been a 2-year investigation involving its own officers on the ground in Pakistan. It was dubbed Project Spiel. Most of the investigation reports that were released to CBC News are marked secret, and they've been highly censored. But the revelation that slipped through has stunned Giesbrecht's friends. The Department of Foreign Affairs refuses to explain why it asked the RCMP to stop investigating the case. The RCMP also refuses to comment, leaving Giesbrecht's friends to ask the question, why, if her kidnapping was a crime worth investigating, her death isn't? Kurt Petrovich, CBC News, Vancouver.
Even as the 48-hour deadline for kidnapped UN official John Kuleki ends, the Taliban has released another hostage video this time of a Canadian journalist threatening to behead her by March 30th.
Canadian journalist Beverly Giesbrecht is the latest on Taliban's death row.
The time is now very short and my life is going to end. So I need someone to help me. Either the Pakistani government or my own country. Somebody's got to move now because my life is going to be over.
The irony is Beverly, now Khadija Abdul Qahaar, publisher of a pro-Islamic website, Jihad Unspun, was in Pakistan to understand jihad when the Taliban kidnapped her in North Waziristan. A cash-strapped Taliban first demanded $2 million and have now settled for $375,000 US ransom. And as a deadline for the execution of kidnapped UN man John Soleiki lapsed, the timing of Beverly's hostage video release served as a grim reminder for foreigners in Pakistan that they have now become the Taliban's most negotiable currency in their holy war.